Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Heidi Krupp. I'm the CEO and founder of Krupp Agency. I am really very excited for my special guest today. Her name is Arianna Salyard, and you would know her as the modern girlfriend. I know her as family. She's like a sister to me. I've known her since she was a little girl. I used to sleep in her room, and she used to allow me to share her bed with her when I would stay at her parents' house when I was doing publicity for her mother, who some of you may know, big supermodel, TV show expert, cook, expert on all things, Christina Ferrari. So, why I wanted to talk to Ariana today is she has a blog. It's an incredible blog. It's called Modern Day Girlfriend. It's amazing. She's a lifestyle and influencer. But today, I really wanted to talk to her about, in the month of Mental Health Awareness Month and Mother's Day coming up, is a subject that both of us went through as a journey, and I think she's done an incredible job. I'm so proud of her. She's been so brave sharing her fertility journey, because there's so many people out there that want to have a baby and can't. I think it kind of does happen sometimes to those that try their hardest and are so used to putting things in a box and being in control of everything, but then God throws you that you're not going to be in control of this. So with that, I just want to say welcome, Ariana.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And
So
so
excited.
I know that next week is Infertility Awareness Week.
Mhm.
And I think both you and I, share that common ground. What was really hard. You don't realize when you get married and you meet somebody and to have a baby, that it would be a rough thing. So I wanted just to start with, you know, take us from the beginning of your baby journey. And, you met Neil.
Yeah.
Shadi, you thought that, hey, I'm just going to get pregnant because I
Mhm.
scared him and we're going to have a baby. Talk me through some of what you went through. And then I can't wait to tell everyone what the end result was.
So it's not like everybody says, well, first comes love, then comes marriage, then comes baby in the baby carriage. Like that's what you're grown up on listening to. And it couldn't be further from the truth for us, for our journey. Um, so we were lucky that for us, in a sense, when we tried 4 times, got pregnant 3.
Mm,
So in that aspect, we were very lucky that it was easy for us to get pregnant, but hard for us to stay pregnant.
mm,
Um, so we ended up having, I call it 3 consecutive miscarriages, but one of them was an ectopic pregnancy. That was our last one. And it ended up with the removal of my left fallopian tube. And and then through that, we went through IVF. But backtracking to that, to the losses at first, I never in a million years thought that would happen to me. And it would continuously happen to me and in different
mm,
ways. Each loss is so unique. And I think that even though how I share my story on my platform, on my blog, I can I can have a certain level of empathy for people and then for me, but each loss for one person is so unique. So that connectivity of sharing your story, again, you can have empathy, but you can't, it's to a certain degree, if that makes sense. Because each loss, each person, how they mentally go through it, how they process it is so different. So that's why I really try to share just a common ground of,
mm.
if you've gone through this, you're not alone, you are heard, your thoughts are valid, your feelings are valid. Um, and so I never thought I would be speaking on this topic, but I am. And
Well,
each oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it's beautiful that you've taken some, pain and have turned it into purpose.
That's what I was going to say. One of my things that I say is finding purpose in the pain, and so and hope in the heartache, and laughter in the lessons. It's
Was it
just
was it hard to share it? Like, or was it hard to, I mean, I know for myself, I mean, I was a later in life. I mean, I was old, let's face it. I mean, I didn't
You,
get married until, well, I didn't get married until I was 40. And, but I had frozen embryos before in fact, we froze embryos before we even got engaged. Your mother once called Darren on the telephone and said, don't have a party for her, just give her a ring, like get over the embryo thing. It was funny. We're having
sounds
this
like my mom.
conversation now. Exactly. Exactly. And so, for us, I didn't know that my eggs had an expiration point. Like, I didn't
Mhm.
know that there could be any of the challenges when you were going through it, because I think your generation has heard more about infertility and more about
Mhm.
freezing eggs and having embryos. So when you were going through it, were you aware that there could be challenges? Because, like, for me, like, I was oblivious to the challenge because I'm so optimistic. I thought, oh, of course I'm going to get pregnant and I'm going to have a baby. This is what I do. I get people on television shows. Like, I didn't even
Yeah.
think that that would be a problem, honestly.
Yeah. So with IVF or just in general?
In general, the whole journey.
I did not because my family, we come from a big Greek Italian family.
Yeah.
Everybody has like 100 kids.
Hmm.
So I just was like, that's not my journey. Like, I'll just get pregnant. That's not going to be an issue for me. And that was really a topic that was not talked about in our family, which after I had my losses, my mom started to open up about how difficult it was for her to get pregnant with her first child. And
Yeah.
so I just was like, oh, I had no idea.
Hmm.
And so it was interesting. I don't think you go into wanting a kid and getting pregnant and thinking like that you would have a problem getting
That's actually a very, very good point. And I think that so many people don't know that going through the journey is a rough one, right? I mean, so infertility, and for you, I remember when you had gone through these things, you weren't doing IVF, like you said, you were able to get pregnant on your own, but it started to become super painful in your journeys that you went through, especially the ectopic pregnancy, because it was further along and that was
pregnant.
hard. And I was so glad that you reached out so that for me, I could say to you, well, I've been through 9 fertility cycles. I blogged for Oprah during the experience. I didn't think I was gonna get pregnant. I thank God I was blessed with Caden at 44 years old. Had my only and one son. Super happy to say that. And I think for you, Ariana, I loved when you were like, okay, I have to try this IVF thing, but I don't really know how it's gonna work. How did that feel to decide like, okay, I need to go with IVF? Because I think some people don't think about going with IVF, or they think that there's something wrong with having to admit that you need assistance in something. I mean, I know for me, I was like upset about it. So I wonder how you felt about it.
As you know, me as a little girl, I always wanted to be a mom. I was always taking
I
care of
know.
like my stuffed animals, my toys, like everybody. That was
Your
just
dog.
my dog. As also to my dog is sitting on my lap right now.
Oh, like show me Tater. Show me Tater dog. Where's here?
Jader, you want to say hi?
Hi, hi, Tater.
Hey,
Hi, hi. Tater,
hi.
Ariana knew my may he rest in peace mascot Isaac.
Yes, Isaac. The best.
My first baby, and
Yeah.
and you had all kinds of other taters before Tater too. I
Mhm.
remember.
Yes, yes. And my mom is actually upstairs with the baby now, so she's taking a little
Oh,
nap.
she's at the house.
Yes, she
Oh,
is.
I didn't know she was there. I love that. Oh, we should make her. She should come do a cameo
Yeah.
for sure. So, the good news is that Ariana had a baby. Literally, how many weeks ago?
6 weeks.
6 weeks ago,
6 weeks today.
and her name is,
Her full name is Carlisle Olivia Salyards.
and she's gorgeous. And we'll have pictures, and you'll see how beautiful she is. So what Ariana did when she was going through this, so she decided to go through IVF, and even then it was hard. I mean, why don't
Mhm.
you talk a little bit about that, and then we'll get back to the rest of it.
Yeah. So I think jumping back to the question that you asked was, did I find it difficult to choose IVF?
Yes.
And I didn't because we of course I had to process the grief. And I didn't, think at each one, I really didn't think I was going to make it because it was so, each one was so different and so taught me different lessons. Each one of our losses did. And, you know, after each loss, you have a little bit of hope where you're like, okay, let's try this again. And we did. And then it happened again. And then it happened again. And it was like, and then with the removal of my tube,
Mm,
I just was like, if I try again and it gets stuck in the next tube, I'm going to have to go to
mm,
IVF.
mhm,
So,
mm,
and we have to be very, very careful if we do get
mhm,
pregnant that way. And do we want to go through, even though it will be different,
mhm.
that loss again? Because we don't know what's causing the losses.
Right.
So, you know, maybe it is the embryo. Well, I say maybe it is because again, you go through all those feelings of what did I do? It's my fault.
Right.
Um,
You blame yourself for everything because you actually think you can control it, even though you can't.
and you can't. And so we just decided after that loss that we would take some time, and then in the new year we would start IVF. And again, with IVF and reaching out to you and talking to you and knowing what you went through, we not only speaking to you about it, but our history, we knew that nothing is like guaranteed. So you can try an IVF, and it was just a very expensive what if,
I know.
but
I remember talking about that with you, and Jamie Griffo was so great. Who's our chief
yeah,
medical director and one of the pioneers in it in at New York Langone at Prelude
yeah,
Inception, and he knew you were going to get pregnant, Ariana. Like we have to send him
wonderful.
a photograph. We
Yeah,
must. We must.
he's great. Yeah,
So
and
then you
he's speaking.
decided. And he, I think, also helped you. I think part of
Mhm.
it is people don't know the questions to ask and what to do on the journey. So I think, like, some people just think, I mean, you're right. You think first comes love, then comes marriage, then comes baby and the baby carriage. But there's no, like, wait a second. What if you can't get pregnant? Here's what you need to do, or
Mhm.
here's how you need to. Here's what you need to be thinking about, and you start to question, like, was it my stress? Was it my thoughts? Was it my what I ate? Was I not praying enough? I
Yeah.
mean, you literally start to make yourself crazy. I don't know about
Mhm.
you, but I think for me, when I went through it, I eventually, on my last fertility cycle, which, I mean, I had 9 retrievals. I
Mhm.
had 3 IVFs. Caden was the third. He was the success in the third IVF round, and I could make embryos. I was like, I was a good egg maker, but then they didn't all become viable embryos. So,
Mhm.
and I'll never forget my first journey. I think I shared this with you, Ariana, and I'd love to hear yours when you were able to get your outcome that I think you wanted, that we want to inspire other people to be able to get. Um, I was in the room for my first retrieval with Darren, and there were a bunch of people there, and it was at a different fertility company that ended up not being where I ended up making and having Caden, but
Mhm.
we did a retrieval at this place, and I was overachiever. I'm in the waiting room. I'm like, how many eggs do you have? I'm asking people. I think back about it, knowing all of what I know now, I cannot believe I did that. And I'm like, I have 23. And this
But let's
woman
be
said,
honest too, when you're also sitting there and you're going in for your egg
you're
retrieval and there's other
anxious.
people, you're also listening because 'cause you're like, "Oh my god, what did they get? What did should I
Right.
be?" You start.
No, of course. And then, but here's the part. Darren couldn't wait for me to get out of that waiting room because he knew he had said to me once we went into the other room. So this woman said, well, I have this many this time. And Darren looked at my face and I go, what do you mean this time? And she goes, well, I had this many the last time, but it didn't work. And Darren said my whole face went white and like I couldn't speak. And then he was like, oh, shit. Because he thought like he was going to get away with me not knowing that like this couldn't work. Like the idea that
Mhm.
something couldn't work was so not part of my vocabulary or my thinking or
Mhm.
my mindset or my anything. I mean, you know me, Ariana. I like set my mind to something. I think I can will it to happen. I feel like I'm the possibility person. I'm making people's dreams come true. And I was like,
Mhm.
how can I not like make this happen? I remember we went in and we retrieved, but I was really worried and nervous. I mean,
Mhm.
and I had made, you know, 4 embryos, and then my mother-in-law, used to work at a at a gynecologist's office, and they did IVF, and she had said to us once we told her that we had done this, because we didn't tell her while, but we told her after, and she goes, "Oh, yeah, 4 embryos, that's not enough." And I was like, "Oh my god." So not only is it not I'm not good enough, I felt like I'm not good enough because I can't have a baby naturally, and now my mother-in-law has told me that I don't have enough of embryos to have a baby,
You
and then,
just
you
need
know,
one.
right? That's what I told you. So then what
Mhm.
happened? So tell us what happened. Keep telling us about your
Oh,
story.
so for us, for our IVF, we, as you know, or when you go into IVF and you um, try to figure out how many cycles you are going to do, because again, we went in there and we were like, oh, we'll just do one. We'll get a bunch, like it's fine. And we got pregnant each 3 out of the 4 times we tried. I should be making enough eggs. His sperm should be great. Like, you don't think again of that.
At all? No.
And so for us, and it's also interesting as well when you go in and speak to the doctor. They're like, "Okay, how many cycles do you want? We can give you a discount if you do 2 or 3." It's kind of like, wait, then you kind of say like the business side.
Yes.
So that's a little thing of that. But
Well, you know, I don't think yeah, I think that's good feedback coming from a patient thinking that
yeah,
that's what it is, but what they're trying to do is manage the expectation
now I
of it
see that.
might now you right, that it may
Now
not
I
no,
see that.
no, that it
Oh,
may
yes.
not work, and if it doesn't, and also you might want a second. So, like, if you're having to do this and you decide in a couple years or whatever have you that you want to use whatever embryos, whatever you have, I think it's part of that. But you're so emotional because you just want to make it happen that
Yes.
those aren't really. You're right. It's kind of like a weird time to have this conversation about a package of something when you're hoping
Mhm.
you're just going to get pregnant on the one and done,
Yes,
right?
and that's why after with our outcome that we have, but looking back at that, it was during it, that's what we thought, because we were just like, "Oh, we'll just do 1. We'll get pregnant, I'll get again, like, we'll get a bunch of embryos, it will be fine." So why would we do that? Um, so lo and behold, with our journey for our first egg retrieval, I got about 9. Then I went to 7, then I
Mm-hmm.
went to 5,
Mm-hmm.
then I went to 1.
Mm.
And
Well, we'll talk about a little bit about that, Ariana, because I know what you mean. But for those of people that are listening or watching, or on a journey, during the National Infertility Awareness Week next week, like when you say they went to, is it because the embryo? Like I know it's like 4 days or 5 days. So can you
yeah,
explain that part a little bit? Because that's also a whole other. It's a numbers game, right? So go ahead. Can you explain that
yes.
a little bit?
So
'Cause
they
I know
got
you're like a doctor now. Yes.
just play one on TV, you know?
Exactly, like your mom,
Yeah.
like your mom.
So they retrieved 9 eggs, and then they only made 7 embryos. And then from the 7 embryos, the 5 went to 5 days, and then they genetically tested them.
Mhm,
And then we only had 1 good genetic egg or embryo, excuse
mhm,
me.
mhm, mhm,
So that was really disheartening,
mm,
but also there was that sense of hope, right? We had 1
mhm, mhm,
beautiful, healthy embryo, and
mhm,
that embryo wasn't they give you numbers for embryo. It could be like
mhm,
4AA, 4AB, 4,
mhm,
um,
mhm,
and that one was like a 4AB. So again,
mhm,
too, you're like, oh, what's it going to take? Because you get into your head because you want everything to be
mhm.
perfect. Um,
Ooh,
and 4AB is perfect, and 4AC is it, your baby is beautiful, your embryo is beautiful in any which way it is
right.
created.
So then what
Um,
happened?
So then we wanted to do the next egg retrieval after. We didn't want to go right into implantation. So we're like, let's
Mhm.
just get all the eggs that we can.
Yep.
So
Smart.
for our, yeah, but for our second, we go to the egg retrieval and I'm like, great, I had 9 last time. This time it's gonna be like 20. We're gonna do good. We're gonna be great, going in with
Because
that.
you stood upside on your head. I mean, I had someone
Okay.
give me a card from a fertility temple that I used to put inside my underwear. I mean, the things that people try to do to control
Oh yeah.
trying to have a baby are very normal, we all feel this like emotional and trying to control it. The minute you let go, I think it happens. Anyway, go
Yeah.
ahead, Ariana.
And so then for our second went in, and I remember waking up and looking at Neil, and I was like, all right, how did we do? Did we do good? And I was expecting at least the same amount of numbers. And he just looked at me and he's like, we got one. And my heart just sank. I was like, what
Oh,
are you talking about? We just got one. And he's like, and then the doctor came in and he said, all of your, or like, I'm blanking on the word, not, oh, the eggs. All of them but one were cysts. So
oh,
they can't
yeah,
tell the difference when they're, the
right,
ultrasounds until they're
right,
in there.
right.
And, as you go to doctor's appointments leading up to that. So you're like, the doctor's like, it's great. You have this
Of
many.
course.
They're just good. So you have this
Yep.
expectation. And
Yes.
my
Yes.
heart sank because I was like, well, I know it just takes one, but this one has to go through this whole journey to get to be a good embryo.
Yeah.
So we held out hope and it didn't get past the third day.
Mm,
So again, and it's something too that is a topic that I think really needs to be talked about, as well as that
mhm.
these are losses as well.
A
They're
hundred
losses of, yeah.
100% their loss of hope. I mean,
Hmm.
I am with you. I mean, they're not yet, they're not, it's a loss of a
What could have been.
dream,
Yeah.
of a, and it's a defeatedness of, it's a lot, it's the expectation that, that is like, you start to think like, why?
Hmm.
Like, why? You
Hmm.
question.
Hmm. So with that, we just were like, okay, we are going to transfer our one embryo that we have, and let's see where that takes us. But I think because of our journey, we, of course, would want nothing more than to get pregnant, but we also knew not only did it take the step of implanting,
Mhm,
and which I was so thankful for you that you told me there was those 2 things. It was the Neupogen and
mhm.
there's, intralipids.
Carnilla, mhm,
Yes,
intralipids, yes. The immunotherapy, yes.
yes. So the one that it's like the fat that they give you in the IV. So if you do have
Yep,
natural killer cells, it
yep,
helps suppress those so that's not
yep,
attacking the embryo, and then the
yep,
thing to make your uterus extra sticky. So
that's right.
thank you for saying that's why I wanted to share it. So if anybody's listening to it and they want to talk to their doctors about that, I would highly recommend that because I also,
It's like a bed hedge. I mean,
yes.
there's nothing, especially since no one found out why you were having the losses before.
Mhm.
Sometimes it is killer cells. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's because you had all those cysts, you might have had polycystic ovary,
Yeah.
and
And that's the
nobody
thing.
ever diagnosed that potentially. Who
Yeah.
knows?
And the thing as well with IVF in the beginning, you both get tested for all these different things. And we
That's right.
both were, from what they tested, we were both healthy. So
Yeah,
again, you're in your head where you're like, why is this happening to us? So,
so that you could now share all this with everybody else and help others, because that's what you are, like an angel messenger.
well, thank you. And when we share the outcome, I have a comment to say to that, what you just said. So,
Mhm.
um, because of our journey, it taught me like the biggest lesson or a bunch of lessons throughout. But Yeah, so so then we just took some time, and then in the beginning of 2023 we started for our the implantation. But I also
And
and we have our little baby girl. She was born a day before my birthday on March
ah,
8th.
the greatest gift in the
Yes,
world.
the
Look at
best
that.
birthday
That was
present.
so it was your birthday. I mean, it
Yes,
was
it was.
really that's amazing. And so and tell us a little bit about that because that's also a journey, right? Like so you wanted the birth to be one way and then I mean it's like the whole thing is a journey.
Yes, and that's also too with, with mental health, which is really important. This is why I share the way that I do. I Our journey was rough and tough and just beat me down. And then you go into labor and you think, okay, I want it this way as well. And again, the lessons you learn, you're like, you can't control anything. Like, you know,
Wow, God's laughing at your
oh yeah,
plans.
oh
Yes.
yeah. And I didn't want much in my labor, but I just wanted certain things, like to possibly be awake for it, but I
Oh,
wasn't.
true.
So
Oh,
for me, I
okay.
had a horrific birth and labor. I had an infection. Um, my epidurals weren't working. They gave me three
Oh,
epidurals.
oh
Wasn't
my.
working. They put me on the table to do an emergency C-section. Could Right before they were starting everything, I lifted my legs and I could feel them like putting that stuff on my stomach. And the anesthesiologist was like, I have to put you under. It's like that would be good.
Oh.
But um, but with that as well, he was telling me I had to put you under or me under, and then I see my husband out in the hallway, and he's like, "Well, he can't come in now because we have to put you under." And then I start projectile vomiting. So it's all this, like, and I then thought I was not going to make it. That my husband would just have to take my daughter. Then woke up to my daughter being like with things suctioning liquid out of her. So the
It
whole
was trauma
journey.
so it was so it sounds like you had also a traumatic birth.
Oh, yes.
I
And
didn't
that
realize that,
oh,
Ariana.
yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But I'm so
It
happy that everything worked out well, and it might have
yeah.
also, been so how did you manage that?
I'm still trying to manage that. I have my days that I go, "Why did this happen to me?" I'll cry in
Mhm.
the shower because the thought of that moment where I thought I
Mm.
truly wasn't gonna make it, and seeing my
Oh.
husband um, and then seeing my daughter with a bunch of doctors over her and, like,
Mm.
sirens going off
Mm.
and again and then waking up and my husband I had no connection to what was happening. So I
Mm.
saw my daughter, and I just was like, "Who's that? Why am I here? Why am I in the hospital?" And my husband
Yeah.
said too, he's like, "You couldn't put 2 and 2 together," and that being taken away in for whatever reason for us to, like, him not be able to see his daughter being born, and then for me not being able to see my daughter be born and have that moment together. You have all of these expectations, and
Mhm.
this whole journey up until the end,
Mm.
and then also
Mm.
motherhood, where you're just like, one, I am so not in control, and two, everything's, it's the unexpected, and you just have to continue to roll with the punches each day.
Yeah,
And
but
so,
so now the same way I introduced you to the IVF and the fertility stuff, I am going to introduce you to someone that is in LA and in Boston because you know it's the story that it's the expectation that you have and then it's the meaning that you give it, right? So I think what's been happening, it seems, for you during this journey is you're still reliving it because you haven't released it yet a little bit. That's why you're still upset in the shower and whatnot. I never really thought about my journey that much. And then when you were going through yours, I was really connected to it in a lot of
mm,
ways. And I and it was triggering, but in a good way. And then I started to realize, wow, I can't even believe I went through all of that. And when I was going through all of that, I didn't feel anything because I was so committed to just getting to
Mhm.
the outcome and getting a baby and being a mother that like I didn't feel anything. Because this is what like women do, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And people do. It's not just women. I think a lot of people like go through this like you want something, so you're focused on it, and you don't want to feel because if you do, then you might not stop feeling, or you might stop it from happening, and and all of the above. So,
And
you
I
know,
think uh,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say too, with that, I've always thought that I hate when people say like time heals all wounds. I think time helps you
Mm,
process and you process things
mm,
differently. And
mhm,
for me, whenever there's been anything traumatic, and I've shared this with my friends, I've shared it on my social and on the blog as well, on the Modern Day Girlfriend, that
mhm,
it's like a scar. So like when you something
mm,
happens to you, it cuts you open, right? And there's blood
mhm,
and it's painful and it hurts. And that
mhm,
pain, you feel
mhm,
it so deeply, and then
mhm,
you try to put things on it to heal it. So you try to put, like, I don't know, Vaseline, whatever you want to put on, and like a band aid, and you try to heal it. And sometimes the wound opens up again, and
mhm,
then it can get infected, and then all of these things. But
mhm.
in time, it starts its process of healing, but then you're left with a scar. And so when you look down at that scar, the exact pain you felt when you got it is no longer there, but you can look at it and remember how you got it and how much you've overcome from that. And so
That's a
that's what
great way.
yeah.
Great.
So I just try to, that's how I view my life and what has happened to me, and the processing that pain. And I said earlier about how I wanted to jump to, something about the outcome. For me, again, we are very blessed that we had the outcome that we did. And I said this when we started IVF, if we were able to be blessed with a baby, because she was our one healthy embryo. We had one. And,
Mhm.
we're like, we don't know if we'll ever get pregnant again, too, because naturally it will be difficult. I said that she would not be here if she wasn't created the way that she was.
Mm,
So there's
I'm
purpose in her, and
a
there's purpose
hundred
in the
percent.
way that she is here. And that gets me emotional, because even though I had to go through the pain, and I still, like, we still have our angels in heaven, and she would not be here. That her little crooked smile, her little like blue eyes and blonde hair, like, this little being wouldn't be here if she wasn't created the way that she was. So that gives me a lot of sorry, it makes me really emotional.
No, great.
Comfort in that, not in the journey that we had to get here, but for her and her purpose in life. So
Well, she's a warrior,
she is.
but so are you. So, I mean, going through these IVF journeys and going through these things aren't for the faint of heart at all.
Mhm.
And what's been lovely, I saw like you've been documenting on your modern day girlfriend blog and showcasing your journey along the way. Let me ask because I think this part is really not talked about enough. And I mean, I could tell you, but we'll probably not be able to share that much of this. I mean, I don't know, maybe we will, but like I completely going through it, you don't I mean, I think Neil was amazing in there for you every step of the way, right? But
Mhm.
it's hard for the guy because they don't know what
Mhm.
to do to help you when you're
Oh, yeah.
emotional and going through it. And I mean, I'll never forget the first time we did a transfer. We were so excited, or not a transfer. We had collected, and they were testing the embryos, and I was pregnant. It was early days, and oh, I'm sorry, we did do a transfer, and I was pregnant, and I was so excited. And then the doctor called like 4 days later and said it was a chemical pregnancy. So it wasn't like an official pregnancy because sometimes those numbers, happen that way. And Darren was sitting next to me, and I don't even really ever. It's so funny. I never really thought about it until this happened to you. And I remember sitting there and going, well, what do you mean? That can, can't you do something? Like, should I have another shot? I mean, I literally spent
Mhm.
15 minutes trying to convince him that I could come to his office and he could give me medicine to inject upon me, that we were going to fix it and make it better. Cause I was
Mhm.
so not prepared, nor could I believe that it wasn't going to happen because I was so convinced that it was going to happen.
Mhm.
So, but poor Darren, like, so how did it go with Neil? What's his journey? Like, how have you made sure that, he's part of it, and, thanking him, and how has he helped? And I think it's so important to really put conversation around the partner in it, because like we're injecting and doing, and I don't know about
Mhm.
you, but I had to do all my own injecting. Darren was skittish and afraid of shots, and so I had
Oh,
to do it all, or
yeah.
hire a
No,
nurse to come for the last one. Did Neil do your shots for you?
he did. He did. He
See,
did.
of course he did.
The
He's
one,
amazing.
I
I
can't
love
remember.
Neil.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I can't remember which one in the retrieval. I can't remember the name right. The Menopur. Whew, that one
Ah,
burns. So he did that one because I didn't want to like do that and scare myself with. But the
yes,
tip that I love that I got was you ice the location for 10 minutes
yes.
before. So I did that for
Hmm.
both that and the progesterone. But
Hmm.
I have to say it. He really stepped in all the way in the beginning. So the first loss was, you know, we that one we ended up going to the hospital for, and it was traumatic for him,
Hmm.
obviously as well, but
Of
more
course.
so, I think because it was the pain that he saw that I was in, going to the hospital,
Mm.
kind of like the surroundings of it, not necessarily. And I don't want to be speaking for him, but
Of course.
then the loss of like
Mm.
seeing it,
Mhm.
and again too, they don't have an emotion, not sorry, not an emotional, a physical connection to
Right.
it yet.
Yes,
So
yes,
it's hard for them to connect it
yes.
in that way. And so our second loss, we were obviously together, and he, as it was happening, I was in the restroom, and he just was like, can I be with you? Like,
Mm,
can I see it? Can
mm,
I help you? Can I? And he's like, I
mm,
just wanted to like be there on a different level for you this time around.
mm,
And so
mm,
that was really beautiful in that for our
mhm, mm,
relationship.
mm,
I saw him in a different light. I think he saw me in a different
mhm,
light.
mm,
And that was helpful as well because then also too in the way that we lost that one and in the restroom, your hopes and dreams are literally in the toilet, and that's a hard thing
oh,
to wrap your brain around as well. Um, and then for our third, we were rushed to the hospital, and that kind of that traumatic experience,
mm.
and then the way that you think you're gonna have a family kind of like goes out the and he was scared for my life.
You're so, of course, a hundred
So
percent, 100%, because it's out of all of their controls. The
yeah.
partner is like just there along for the ride. They can't
Mhm.
do anything. They can't push. They can't push it out fast enough. They can't. I mean, they can just be
Yeah.
there for you. But it's really hard. I think it's very hard for a partner to go
Mhm.
a partner to go through it that's not carrying or doing the shots and all of it. And
Mhm.
I think that there definitely should be the same kind of comfort and care and process in the journey for them as there is for the person that's going through it.
Yeah. And I
Remember I
think
told you that. I did tell
yes.
you that.
And I think
I
because
didn't
of
I
our
didn't know I didn't know that then. Like when I
yeah.
was going through that, I just, it was like me, and I didn't like think ever like that it was impacting Darren. And it really
Yeah.
did a lot.
Yeah. I think because of our journey that led us to IVF, we had a very good understanding and communication of this process. And even again with our labor and everything that's happened, we're kind of just like there was always trauma that met us. Do you know what I mean? So we've had to learn how to be each other's pillar of strength. So during IVF, and he wanted to be giving me the shots. He wanted to be part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really helpful, and
Mm-hmm.
it just, yeah, it was something that also brought us even closer if we could be closer. And then through that IVF journey as well, I said to him, you know, I can only, if today with all the medication, everything that I'm feeling, if I can only go 5, it's the Brene Brown, I think. If I can only go
Exactly.
5%, I need you to
Yeah,
go 95%. And if
that's
you can only go
right.
5 today, and I can only go 5 today, we have to give each other grace that we got 10%. And we've carried that on to newborn life, where we're
I
both like,
love I
today,
love
we're
that.
running on fumes, but we're good.
No,
Because we
and
know
you're
we can.
and you're grateful. I mean, and you're just so,
So
and so
grateful.
all of that trauma, and like even when the past of the journey comes up at the end of the day, I mean, Ariana, so many people don't get the one. They don't
Yeah.
get the embryo. They don't ever get pregnant. They don't get the experience. Some people,
Yeah.
they can't even afford it.
Mhm.
I mean, look at my parents. Like, I'm adopted. My mother never could get pregnant, and my dad. And so, I mean, having that experience of being a mom, carrying a baby inside you is like the most
Yeah.
extraordinary experience in the world, especially if it's
Yeah.
something that you want. And you can have a baby anyway. Having have the baby any way you want is what's so
Yeah.
great about modern
And
science.
yeah, and that's the thing too is I think along our journey as well, and some people might get to it, they might not, but it's life might look different. So being a mom any which way, whether that is through
Hmm.
adoption or
Hmm.
surrogacy or anything like that, is just
Hmm.
changing that narrative, if that in your mind, if that is what works for you. And
Hmm.
you know, Carlisle she was 40 weeks and the doctors were like, we need to get her out. We need to do this. And I just was like, she's giving me this gift. I don't know if I'll ever have it again. So I know that there's, health concerns past 42 weeks, but my baby
Hmm.
will know what to do. But I'm holding on to this
Hmm.
miracle. And
Hmm.
I think that's what she was doing too for me, was giving me that extra
Hmm.
time just to
Hmm.
enjoy it. And I had, through our journey, and even at 1 o'clock in the morning when I'm feeding her, and I look at her, and of course I'm tired, but I'm just like, I'm so incredibly grateful and thankful. And I think it, through pain and through trauma, it can shift your mindset to actually be more grateful, than sad. So
So what would you say to someone that's trying to have a baby? What would be your greatest takeaway? Like when they're first start or for their dating, like do you think would you if you were to do it all over again, would you have frozen eggs earlier and like just what are some of your takeaways, your tips, your life lessons? And that's number one. And then the second question and my is how are you going to keep helping people with this and sharing your story?
um, so I think if I had to go back and do it, I would have at least had a conversation with a doctor. I think it's
Yes.
really important. Your uterus doesn't age, but your eggs do.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
so you want to have good quality eggs. So
Mm-hmm.
and when I was younger, IVF wasn't really talked about. You really didn't know anybody who was an IVF baby or going through IVF. So now
Well,
that,
well, you did, and you probably
yes,
went to
but I
school
wasn't.
with them, but nobody
Oh yeah,
talked about it.
yeah,
That was
nobody
more
talked
it,
about it.
right?
Yeah, and so now I tell my friends, just go get, if you can, go have a consultation. Just check, see if it's something for you. Um, and I'm also very realistic as well too, where there are some of my friends that, of course, all got pregnant naturally in the last couple months, and I'm so happy and like
Of course.
grateful for them that they were able to do that. But I'm like, let me tell you, the newborn stage. I'm not trying to burst your pregnancy bubble, but it's tough. Like I'm just, you know what I mean? I'm just like, it's rough. It's rough. So enjoy it. When people are like, oh, you're not going to be able to sleep now. Like that doesn't even start the conversation. Um, but I would just have people have a conversation, or you know what, if it's too much, financially, is just start talking about it with people. Because there are
Mhm.
going to be people in your family or your friend group that you have no idea about that had gone through IVF or had issues getting pregnant or infertility, and because there's, like, sperm is decreasing, infertility is on the rise, and so it's all of these things
Mhm.
of just trying to be, proactive. And I'm going to jump to, and then I'll get back to it. But it was a conversation that we had together, Neil and I, where we're like, well, is, do we ever share that she was an IVF baby? Of course, we're going to share with her that she was an IVF baby. And because also, too, it gives her the knowledge and the information to be proactive for herself. That,
Yes, and you know what else it does? It lets her know how much she was loved and wanted.
yes.
Again, it's like all about the meaning. Kaden met our fertility doctor, Jeffrey Scher. He's amazing, and um, he was with us in New York when Kaden was little, and so he came to we went to lunch with him at one of my favorite restaurants, Greek restaurant, Piriali. I think I've been to Piriali with you, Ariana, maybe, but maybe not. I don't know. And so he took out a sugar pack and showed Kaden on the table, this is what you were, like to show him how little he was. So Kaden loves telling that story. I like
Mhm.
made him part of the journey.
Yeah.
We wanted you because, and for me, I think I did that also because I was adopted and I was told a different story. My dad used to tease me that he would go into a room and there were all these babies, and then I went, "Ah," and he said, "Oh, I have to have her." I mean, that never happened, but I love the idea of that story,
Yeah.
and it was very
Agree.
sweet of him to like create this connection and that like
Mhm.
he chose me, but that is what he was really trying to tell me was that I picked you. Like I'm so
Yeah.
lucky that I got you. And so I think for Caden, it was lovely, and he loves this, how that all came about. And then,
Mhm.
listen, as they get older, I'll tell you those stories too. You have to talk about sex and how that happened, and in the IVF, like how that happened, and
Mhm.
with how that all comes together. Trust me, there'll be maybe you'll end up writing those books too, Ariana,
Yeah,
as
but
you
that's a
keep
whole
going.
other topic as well, too.
Yeah.
We're going through infertility and fertility as well, is that, learning about when you ovulate and knowing that, like when we were trying and all of those things, something that I wasn't taught to us in school. It was just like, you do this, you get pregnant. You do this, you get pregnant. Like you thought you could get pregnant any day of the week, when it's not
Hmm.
really the case. So that's a whole
No.
other topic too that I've shared and got into. And jumping to your last question about how I'm just going to continue to share,
Hmm.
I'm always active and vocal on my socials, which is my name, Arianna Salyards with an underscore. You can
Hmm.
find me on Instagram and Facebook, Pinterest, and then my blog, The Modern Day Girlfriend. And on there, it's really, in this upcoming year, there's going to be so much more added to it. I'm working on some ebooks and some printables, as well as there's going to be a place on there where it's really for mental health and other brands that I'm promoting to show. Like, I'm working with a brand right now that I love, that I found through pregnancy and my infertility journey, that focuses on pregnancy loss, pregnancy, postpartum. So I'm going to have
Mm.
a place there that you can find products that you love
Hmm.
or that you didn't know about that could be helpful to your
Mm.
journey wherever you are in.
That's
So,
wonderful. I didn't know
yeah.
that. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. I love that. Well, look at you taking like this journey, turning it into something for good. Thank you for letting me be a part of it. When you called me on
Oh, thank you.
FaceTime to tell me that you were
Yeah.
pregnant, I cried, I screamed. You showed me the picture. And because I knew you. I mean, listen, if you stick to it, whether you had it this way or another way, you just have to believe and you have to have hope. And I think what science and modern day science does for people is it really does help people. I'm so grateful that I get to work with, Inception and Prelude to help people across world and in Canada, to have a healthy baby when they're ready on their terms. And, and you and your messaging and helping people during this time, Arianna, is going to be amazing. And I'm here for you all for the rest of your life. You're stuck
Yes,
with me.
me too. That is just important to say this, that, through your journey, you can have these expectations. But what really helped me was I did have a couple friends that, like you, they had to fight to get what they got. And they're miracles. But there was also friends that I saw in their life that even though they weren't able to achieve a pregnancy or a baby, what their life has created for them and what they're doing, whether that is they were an aunt and they are taking care of, their niece or nephew, or I have a friend that who literally helps thousands of women a day. And we've talked about where if maybe if she did have a family, that these lives wouldn't have
Mhm.
been touched the way that they are meant to be. So it's
All
just
about the
really
women.
reframing that and seeing that it might not work out the way that you thought, but if you can look back and see and just give yourself the grace and to just see what your life is creating. So that's just my
Well,
little
I'm very proud of you to be sharing
you.
what your life is creating, and I'm very excited about
Mhm.
my little baby girl that I can't wait to
Mhm.
see. And I was honored and humbled to be at your baby
Yes, I'm so
shower,
thankful you
and
were there.
I was so happy to be there and sharing all the love and be there with your family and Neil's family and all of our friends and see people that I hadn't seen in a long time and celebrate, this. And I'm so happy for the outcome. I know it was traumatic and I'm sorry for that, but I think part of it is to again remind you how lucky you were that you can handle it, that you can do it. Being a parent, we'll get into parenting. I'll get you all the parenting books, the parenting map by Dr. Shafali, the 5 principles of parenting by Dr. Elisa Pressman. And believe me, I got a 13-year-old. I got you're just in the newborn stage. It's easy right now. You're tired, but enjoy every second. No one's talking back. No one's slamming doors. No one's
Mhm.
telling you what to do. So at the end of the day, I'm just thank you for sharing. And might I please enjoy myself in wishing you your very first happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm so happy to say
Happy
that too.
Mother's Day to you.
I loved my first Mother's Day, Ariana, because of that journey of getting there. I mean, it was just such a thing. So, congratulations to you. Thank you for being you, and thank you for sharing all of it. Oh, look who just arrived. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here.
Hi, Kaden.
On cue. Ariana's saying hi, Kaden.
Hi. Oh my gosh. Such
Can you
an
believe it?
adult.
She says you're such an adult.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're recording with me on
I
it?
am recording with you on it. Thank you.
Oh,
Happy Mother's Day to
Happy
Ariana.
Mother's Day.
It's her first
no.
Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Well, come
Thanks,
over
Thank you,
here and
Ariana.
say,
Kaden.
Ariana, thank you so much for being here with me today and sharing all this. And for those of you that are looking for information or need somebody to be your fertility coach and help you on your journey, go visit Ariana at Modern Day Girlfriend and go to her Instagram. And if you need any other questions, certainly please look at Prelude Fertility or Inception Fertility. And thank you so much. Mwah.